Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Warrant Committee. Tonight we are joined by Mr. Alexander Hasha. Actually, you know what we got to do? We should probably do, Madam Clerk, can you please do the roll call attendance so we can say who's here?
Sure. We've got Dave Humphreys, Tom Caldwell, Lori Connolly, Jay Fundling, Kristen Coseel is remote, Timothy Lyons, Julia Maxwell, JJ O'Connor is remote, and Amanda Serio. Oh, and Judy Steele, sorry.
Awesome, thank you. So we have a quorum. We are street legal. And we have Mr. Alexander Hasha with us from Sustainable Milton to talk about for our annual town meeting in May, there is an article with regards to specialized opt-in code. It has to do with the building code. In order for us to amend our building code, it has to be approved by town meeting, okay? And so this is coming our way by way of a warrant article. It's been approved by the select board for inclusion in the warrant in the annual town meeting of May. As with all warrant articles, there would be a warrant committee recommendation. And so here to present to us tonight, and I just want to note on our agenda, all we have is the presentation and discussion. It did not put vote on it, okay? This is important. It is involved. So I figured, and I talked to Mr. Hasha about that. We were in agreement that maybe the best way to go forward at this point would be an introductory meeting, because I'm sure that people will have questions, people will do some research, there will be follow-up questions. We may bring in other people to give their opinion, especially if we have sort of expert-type people, subject matter experts, who might have something to say. So anyway, with no further ado, welcome, Mr. Hasha. Would you please tell us all about the specialized opt-in code?
Gladly. All right, it's nice to meet many of you for the first time. I've lived in Milton for a little over 5 years, and in addition to serving on the board of Sustainable Milton, I'm also the chair of the newly formed Climate Action Planning Committee. But this was a petition from Sustainable Milton. Climate Action Planning Committee is still learning about it as well. Could you, yes, put the slides up and we'll get started. Just to echo what Mr. Humphreys said, I think my goal, Sustainable Milton's goal in bringing this article to the select board was to kick off a meaningful discussion in the town. This is a complicated topic. It's Sustainable Milton are not building experts, but it is something that is sort of central, necessary pillar of the state's strategy to address climate change between now and 2050. And so we felt that one of the best ways to make sure that people scrutinize something carefully is to bring it up for a vote, or it may be a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition. And so, I hope that we can get on the same page about the basics of what's the stretch code, what's the specialized code, what's the difference, why this is an important part of the state's climate change response. And then I'm really just hoping to get into the grittier questions. I'm really interested to sort of draw on all your experience with the town and find out what we really need to know to make a good decision here. Okay, so with that preamble, let's go to the next slide. It's not the most important piece that's under there, so I will. So I just want to start with a kind of high-level overview of what's going on in Massachusetts to address climate change. So in 2021, there was a significant piece of legislation that committed Massachusetts to achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And as part of that, the preparation for that law, the state did an in-depth pathways analysis. So they analyzed all the different possible ways that the state might achieve that outcome. All of them that are sort of technologically feasible today involve massively electrifying the things that today we use fossil fuels for. So primarily, fuel in our personal vehicles, the fuel oil and natural gas that we use to heat our homes. That will also primarily need to be shifted towards electric technologies. So it's really a two-pronged strategy. In parallel, the state is working hard to get the grid powered almost exclusively by renewable energy, and at the same time massively expand its capacity to deliver electricity, because if we're driving and heating our homes with electricity, the demand will go up. In parallel, those things we use fossil fuel for today need to be shifting over to electric technologies. And given that the homes we build now, the cars we buy next year, many of those will still be in service by 2050. The message is not throw out your perfectly good brand new gas car or your perfectly good natural gas furnace, but as these technologies reach end of life, they should be replaced by electric technologies more and more exclusively. So, next slide, please. The specialized opt-in code was a new layer, a new option for Massachusetts communities to select as their building code that was mandated to be added by this 2021 climate law. So prior to that law, or prior to 2022, there were only two options in Massachusetts, the base code and the stretch code. The stretch code, I think, was introduced in like 2011. Don't quote me on that. Maybe we adopted it in 2011, but it's about a decade old. And it was introduced as part of the Green Communities Act. Milton adopted the stretch code by a town meeting article in 2011, and it is the current building code in Milton. And so I think there's been a fair amount of confusion when we talk about the specialized code, because for one thing, like, people don't use the names consistently. So I spent a bunch of time figuring out what does the state call it. So it's the specialized municipal opt-in code, the stretch code, and the base code. Those are the terms that you'll find the state using. Why is it a stretch if we've already done it? Like, it's a little confusing. So another thing that's confusing is that the stretch code is being updated on a fairly regular cadence as part of this climate law as well. So it was updated at the beginning of 2023 to require higher energy efficiency standards for buildings, including some renovations. And it will be updated again in July 2024 with even more stringent energy efficiency requirements. That is not what we're voting on. That's already automatically going into effect in Milton because we have adopted the stretch code. And so what we're talking about here are addendums to the stretch code that were developed, mandated to be developed by the Climate Act in 2021, made available for adoption in 2022. These are sort of upgrades to the stretch code to align it with the 2050 roadmap for electrification. And so it really focuses on making sure that newly constructed buildings are solar ready, EV charging ready, and electric heating ready. Any questions on this slide before I barrel onward?
So the updated based code and the updated stretch code is currently in place and has been. And is this the first update to the stretch in July of 2024?
I don't know how many there have been. There was a significant one at the beginning of 2023, and then
Another one is coming.
another one's coming in July.
But they can change it yearly.
Right. So when
They
usually the language is to adopt the code and updates
Whatever
to be
updates.
Yeah.
So we have no idea what's going to happen with the code that we have adopted. Big surprises can come.
Right. I mean, I don't think municipal governments have the resources to sort of do the work that goes into these building codes. So they're model building codes. I think the base code is based on there's like an international organization that sort of develops these model building codes, and then the state customizes them a little bit or a lot. And that goes beyond my expertise at the current moment.
So then the updated base and stretch at the top, in the top triangle, there, it's just the same as what's below. We're just adding in the specialized.
Yes,
component.
so when you look at the actual code documents, and this is where things have gotten confusing, that contains that document contains the stretch code and the specialized code. The specialized code is an appendix
Okay.
that adds on top. So the stretch code provisions will still be there, whether we vote yes or no on this article.
Okay, thank you.
Judy?
I think I read in this, mass.gov, that updates normally occur every 5 years up to 2050. I also read, so you're saying that they can occur outside that 5-year period, inside or outside? And I made notes at home and I don't have them with me, but I thought it said
I read that
minimum of
too.
every 5 years.
I read that too.
Yes.
Typically, it's like the electrical codes every 3,
Uh-huh.
the stretch, energy codes every 5.
Okay.
You can't just throw it in, it has to be on the cycle.
Well, then
Okay.
how did, go ahead,
That was
sorry.
voted in,
It's okay. So how,
plan,
yeah.
scheduled to go into effect July 1st, 2024.
Oh, okay, so in '23 was, they go through this update, which takes effect a year after,
Is that right?
next year.
So
Basically,
was I wrong about that? There wasn't 2 updates in 18 months?
No.
As a contractor, you probably...
there were, but they were already proposed, and they just slated them coming in at different dates, from what I've read.
So the implementation was
Staggered.
staggered.
Yeah.
So the other question that I have is, my understanding reading this document is that once you've opted in to the stretch code, and there's an update, and there's something on that update that's just not going to work for your municipality for whatever reason, you cannot opt out of the update. The only way to not do that update is to get out
Do another town meeting article.
of the entirety of the stretch code. It's right here.
Yeah, that's for the stretch code, that's true, right? So if you would take a town meeting vote to get out of the update.
You'd have
that are
to
coming in
get out of the
2024.
whole, you'd be throwing the
Yeah.
baby out with the bathwater, starting over, refilling the tub,
Well,
grab the kid.
the third option is the base code. You'd be foregoing all the funding programs that are strings attached to that.
Right, because there always is. Money talks. and-
So you're saying it's, not proposing we do this, but it's theoretical that we could, at town meeting, vote ourselves out of the stretch code?
Yeah, these are the 3 options.
So, but we're currently in July 24, stretch code has been voted to go into effect in Milton.
It's, yes,
So
it's
the
already
update-
in
In
effect.
effect.
We're already in the stretch code,
The
but the
update-
updates will go into effect.
Right, okay, yep,
We've been
2011.
in the stretch code since 2011.
right,
Right.
right. But we could conceivably vote to get out of the stretch code and go back to 2011?
Go back,
No,
go
go
down
back to just
updated
the
base.
base code.
Right, updated base code, yep. But this is also like, what's the interplay here? Because this stuff is essentially Code of Massachusetts regulations. My question is like, at what point can they just mandate us to do that?
CMR.
Right,
If we vote on it, CMR, you don't have a choice.
right,
We adopt it.
yep.
And the only way out, again, is
To go
to,
back to town meeting.
you know,
Right,
the
okay.
whole ball of wax goes, yeah.
Yep, I don't want to get
Yeah,
lost
it's
in
so
details. I'm trying
confusing.
to get my head around, it. Yes.
There is a public feedback process for these codes as well. So I think third option is when the inevitable points of friction and imperfections emerge, you lobby the state aggressively to resolve those issues.
Okay, but where we are right now is stretch code and the updated base, Milton is gonna update our code July of 2024. And now the question that we're having here is, are we gonna go further with that for the opt-in of the specialized opt-in?
And
And so the question becomes, will that be the same as the stretch code? The specialized will be updated, and the update is not compatible with a municipality's ability to do it. The only way, and then you're back to square one, you have to accept it or throw everything out. It's very, because you don't know what's coming down the road.
I think the state got strong incentives not to put things in the building code that are impossible. But I would also be surprised if an adequate response to climate change didn't require some effort.
And just to be clear, the updates that are coming in July 2024, they're not unique to Milton. They're coming with the stretch code
The
in any
stretch code,
communities that are in that
the
category.
majority of Massachusetts municipalities were on the stretch code before this third option was added.
Right.
And it's been, I think close to 60 communities have adopted the specialized opt-in code in the first year that it was available. And there's quite a few more considering it in this cycle.
It's gonna go Tim, then Jay. Thank you.
Is there any state or federal incentives for us to adopt this? Or is it just a lump on top of what we already have?
So the green communities, and is Josh on? I was expecting Josh Eckert Lee and Joe Atchu to be remote, but they're not here.
There is someone named Josh as a participant. Would you like?
Yes, please, can we upgrade him? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think our town staff that may or may not be on the line would know more details here, but so the Green Communities Act had a lot of funding programs tied to participation. Yes, there's Josh. And then that's been, again, another piece of this 2021 climate law created a climate leaders program, and there's funding available through that as well, where adopting the specialized code is a prerequisite. Josh, do you want to expand on that?
Yes, and I'll say also,
You're muted.
Commissioner Joe Achu is also here. May be worth promoting him. You can hear me?
Yes.
No.
Great. So I'd recommend promoting Joe Achu as a panelist as well. He's our building commissioner. But yes, so there are a number of incentives available to us through that Climate Leaders program, through the Green Communities program. But the vast majority of the incentives available through the state's programs are for building contractors and home buyers and homeowners. So there's a vast array of incentive structures built into the sort of steps into building a new home in particular, because that's what the code has primarily targeted, to make it far more cost effective than it would have been otherwise.
Josh, but say we don't adopt it, a homeowner can build to the enhanced stretch code and still get the rebates or incentives from the state on their own, regardless of whether the town is part of it, correct?
Yes, but the likelihood that they would build to that is far lower.
I work for her as builders now, so.
I think in many instances, it's lower cost, both to build and operate a home. So I mean, I think there would be instances where people would, and but it's I think where the builder and the long-term owner are not the same person, there might be a disconnect. If you don't own the long-term operating costs or and I think a big point I want to get to as we sort of move into it, like what's in the specialized code, is that this is really about preparing for electrification and avoiding really expensive retrofits down the road as fossil fuels are phased out. It's much cheaper to get that wiring installed when the walls are down than to have to rip them out and do a retrofit.
When you were saying ripping down some walls, I noticed that the optimized, in here it says not for renovations. The optimized update, or whatever this is, does include renovations over under 1,000 square feet.
That's the stretch code.
Should we let him finish his presentation, maybe?
Let's get into the details of what's in there, and that everybody, including me, is confused about what you just said. So we'll absolutely we'll keep going over that until we all feel good about it.
Okay.
At least good that we understand what is in here, and then we can form opinions about it once we agree about what it is. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is a really high-level summary of the incremental requirements in the specialized code. So by incremental, I mean what would change if town meeting voted to adopt this article versus, so this does not include what's changing with the stretch code updates in July. So the sort of high level is it requires pre-wiring for electric. So it doesn't require an all-electric building, although there's certainly compliance pathways, and they try to incentivize that as much as they can. But you can still build a building with fossil fuel heating and other fossil fuel systems, but they need to be pre-wired for electrification. So the electric service needs to be adequately sized for EV charging, electric heating, et cetera. New buildings that use fossil fuels will have to install a certain amount of on-site solar to sort of offset their emissions, or maybe that's not the right way of thinking about it. And then as you get into large single-family homes and large multifamily homes, the compliance pathways are either all electric or certified zero energy, right? So there's still a fossil fuel pathway, but they have to have solar to kind of offset their energy usage. So I think the key points are the incremental requirements that were actually would change the outcome of, based on this vote do not affect additions or renovations of existing homes. There are provisions in the stretch code that do, right, but those are not affected by this vote. Yes.
So if those, excuse me, if those went into effect prior to the adoption of the specialized code, how does that impact it? So meaning if they,
So everything that's,
if it's, so if it affects the renovation now,
right.
and the top triangle is this plus this plus this, doesn't that mean then
Yes.
that if the stretch code includes renovations, then the adoption of this would then include
So
renovations?
yes, there are new requirements coming in July that will affect renovations, that will be there whether this is adopted or not.
Okay,
The requirements that will only be there if this is voted in only affect new construction.
okay.
Yeah. It's a mouthful.
On the pre-wiring, did you, I don't remember if you said it, you have to have the capacity on the service,
Mhm.
not just the wire. So,
Right.
once you do the load calc, if it says with all the pre-wiring and what you're putting in, you need a 400 amp service. Even if you're only gonna be using 200 amp, because pre-wired, you have to put a 400 amp service in the house. Or
I
600.
think that's
I don't
possible
know.
in some instances.
It's part of my code.
Yes, you would know.
Yeah, it's part of the electrical code that we have to.
Yeah. But for example, I have a home where I'm doing EV charging, and I just got over to heat pumps from fossil fuels, and I'm still on 200 amp service. So I think it will depend on the house.
To clarify, 200 amp service is what a normal house in Milton has.
Yes, right?
Average.
It's
Mine is
100,
not.
the Milton's like probably a quarter 100, and the rest is made up between 200 and 400 amps.
Is it fair to say you wouldn't find a new construction on 100 amps?
No, I don't.
So that's old construction. Might still have.
You might if it's small. Sometimes you do, but with the code, no.
Right. So again, the key points that in favor of this, from my perspective, I think the incremental requirements in this will only affect new construction. These are buildings that, if they go up in 2025, they'll be standing there in 21, 25.
Alex, do you mind if I, so just in terms of the specialized code, what we're talking about now, is there anything in there that would allow the state to change that specialized code?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't have the language in front of me, but I think the article language included
Alter it?
adopt this and future revisions.
Isn't the
So
point that you're moving towards the zero net carbon emissions by 2050, so it's always evolving? All of these codes would always be evolving in theory?
Yes, and I mean, I think they believe that this puts us on the right trajectory. And I'm guessing if they make changes over the next few years, it will be to resolve any pain points that we discover in the first few years.
Yeah, so I'm just going to finish. So it very well could include at some point all new construction, all new renovations, everything must be 100% electric. And that could happen before 2050, maybe,
Yes.
like a second?
Yes, assuming we get there on climate change.
No, I understand.
I think that will happen at some point.
Yeah, so is it, I guess, is it feasible? And I know this is, just as you said, this is a lot. But could they say, like, if you have an old house, you gotta flip that and make it 100% electric? Like, would that be an end game for the state to say, take out the furnace, take everything out, and would you foresee something like that as an end? I'm just curious.
I'm not in the building trade.
That's what
My
we're
experience
hearing.
as a homeowner is that building code doesn't kick in until you're changing things.
Okay. And I know that's a lot. That's a bigger question. I was just curious, just because you can the state can just move the ball, and I was just wondering, what they're saying is, like, we're not doing this now, will they end up doing it later on?
I think you should ask Joe
I was just-
about do 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet with the stuff that's coming into play the first of the year. I mean, July 1st, I believe you have to update the house. But that's not what we're voting on, but that's what's coming into effect July 1st. So
That's
it's
it.
kind of in there already.
In this town, there's so many older.
I think he could answer it better.
Can we ask him?
Please do. Somebody ask him. I don't even understand the question. So I'm going to let somebody who
Joe,
understands.
can you explain with July 1st, 2024, when you do an addition over, I think it was 800 or 1,000 square feet, what that trips?
Sure. Good evening,
Four, five,
everybody.
six.
So, the way it's set up right now is Milton is already part of the Green Community Act, so you're already part of the stretch code. The stretch code is set up that come July 1st, everything is going to be updated with the stretch code. So if you're doing an addition of 1,000 square feet or more, whether that be putting on an addition or building out rooms and things of that nature, anything that accumulates a total of 1,000 square feet, you have to upgrade the entire house to meet the HERS rating. And the HERS rating in July is going to be 4542, which, the specialized code going into effect, I'm not necessarily against. But you did bring up a good point on whether or not in the future, if things change with the specialized code, just like it has over the decade and then some with the stretch code, as things change and the state decides to do more mandates, and if you're already into it, you will be forced to just continue through the process. To the point earlier, I don't know who the gentleman was asking, at some point, could they ask you to pull out your furnace? Could they ask you to pull out your other heating and cooling equipment and change it out with electric? At some point, that will probably take effect, even if your home is older. For example, with doing 1,000 square feet or more of an addition or an accumulated renovation, you have to upgrade the whole house, which in some cases, people are gutting their whole homes and re-insulating everything and weather sealing everything and making it tighter and bringing in more efficient equipment for heating and cooling and for cooking and things of that nature to bring it up to meet those HERS rating requirements that are now currently in place. And that's on the renovation side for existing homes. The specialized codes are only going to be for brand new construction that's being done. And I think that's really the caveat that you have to look at between the specialized code and the stretch code, and the difference between the two. Right now, the HERS rating is 5552 and is dropping by 10 in just a few months. And that may not sound like a lot, but it's drastic because over the years it's gone from being in the 70s and 60s down to where it is today. And builders are having a hard time making sure that they can get to where they're supposed to be at this very point, and where it's becoming more stringent coming July 1st. It's just a tough thing all around. But I don't think where you're focusing on the specialized code right now, I don't think saying no to this is a bad thing. I think it's good. I think it's the right direction that things should head in. And as far as my department is concerned, it doesn't really elevate the amount of workload that we have. It's basically just making sure that we crunch the numbers and get the proper information in place before we issue permits. But overall, I mean, if you're asking myself for my professional advice or recommendation, I would say that you opt into the specialized code. I think it's a good thing. I think the state has put some good things in place in order for making this happen, but also in the same, there's a lot of infrastructure based around that coming into play for this type of thing to work out for everybody. So I think if you look at it too, it's a lot of dollars and cents that the state will get federal funding, the state will give funding to municipalities for complying and so on and so on. Eventually, it'll trickle down. But the upfront cost is going to be a bit much, and that's just the way that I think it's stacked right now. But I don't think anything is without its hiccups.
So I have a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
You said that the new Hearst rating requirement for, and we're talking about the stretch code here, but I think it's just of interest to Milton residents. For alterations over 1,000 square feet, it's going down to 4245, and I'm looking at the actual code document, and there's a table, table R406.5, which says that major alterations, additions, or changes of use need to reach 5255. In the way I understood that table, it sounded like renovations are still at that 5255 level.
That's currently in place, but as of July 1st, it changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it says new construction permits after July 1st. It doesn't say major alterations. But that'd be something to be 100% sure about, I guess.
And just to clarify, talking about, that everyone may be forced at some point to rip out their current heating systems, it's not that the government's showing up at anyone's door. It's that if you are undertaking a major renovation, at that point in time, you may be forced to switch over your system.
That's correct. Yeah, nobody's coming in and forcing you to automatically do this and against your will. It's more along the lines of, like, you're going in, you're replacing equipment, and you're doing all this renovation work and things of that nature. That's when that all comes into effect.
Thank you.
Judy, then Tim, then Tom.
So to be clear, on a renovation, if you're not adding additional space to your existing home, but you just want to redo your kitchen,
Then that does not come into effect.
it does not come into effect. You can still go down to your department and the electrician can get your oven, permit for your electric oven, and then Joe Plumber can come in and put in your gas burners to stove top, right?
Yeah, all of that will still be available. It's on the major renovations of 1,000 square feet or more is where that all takes place.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Back to the heating equipment, they have been phasing out lower efficiency stuff, and there's talk about just when you have to switch, end of life, you might have to switch.
Right.
Regardless of a renovation or
Right,
not.
but they're not coming in to pull out perfectly good heating systems when you're not doing any renovations or anything.
Unless you're going through Mass Save.
However, at that time, maybe you can afford.
The
This
incentives
town
are
talks
different,
about
yeah.
affordable housing, not only rich people. So 10 years from now, if your existing furnace kicks the bucket, you have to put in a new one, go down, get a permit, and now you're saying I have to have a heat pump. I'm just using myself as an example, and there are a lot of me's in our town. I may have the money to replace my existing system, but I simply cannot afford to put in heat pumps and electric sockets and a whole new life of my house. So you forced me into sitting outside at the fire pit to stay warm, or moving, selling my home of
So it's an interesting point, but it
Over.
is Tom's turn.
Tom. Tom, I'm sorry. Did
No.
I mistake?
No, Judy,
I apologize.
No, I'm going to withdraw my question.
Okay.
But
Good
can
question,
I
Tom.
have an answer? Does anyone else want an answer to that?
I'd be happy to try.
So we're back to, I have a house that was built in 1908. It's
I
maintained.
think I understand your question, yeah.
Just got a new furnace 2 years ago. It's a nice furnace.
Probably last 20 years.
But will I? So, my point is this. I think, rephrase for me, anyone, just jump right in, okay? Let's say unforeseen, the furnace wasn't a quality furnace, and you know it's only going to last me out 10 years.
Yeah.
I got to get another one in. And if this code says I can't have
This
the
code doesn't say that.
but it could change.
It could,
It might.
right.
And now, if it did,
This is one
I'm
possible
now
outcome,
stuck.
yeah.
I'm now stuck with an expense that doesn't fit into my budget. So you want me to refinance my house, to put in electric sockets, and then have a mortgage, to have electricity. Do you see that? And I understand that the younger generation
Is that
far
us?
removed from. There's a lot of people that could be jeopardized
And I-
financially.
There's definitely uncertainty associated with any planning like this. Can I just evoke a different kind of uncertainty?
Sure.
If you buy a newly built house that is not pre-wired for electric heating,
Mhm.
and it has a nice new furnace, and the state's transition plans go more or less to plan, right? Which would be that over the next 20 years, the capacity and sort of renewable energy content of the grid gets where they're trying to get it to, and the subscriber base of the fossil fuel infrastructure is going down and down and down. There are projections that the price of natural gas will be much higher than it is today. Then you're stuck with either continuing to buy natural gas at exorbitant rates or doing a major renovation to tear out walls and upgrade your electric so that you can get to a heat pump, which the market is working furiously to make more affordable. So there's all kinds of incentives and effort going into making sure people have good experiences on this electrification pathway, and the opposite for fossil fuels. So I think if I were buying a home on a limited budget that was newly constructed, I would be very concerned if it wasn't electric ready in 2025. So I'm not going to pretend like bad outcomes aren't possible. But I think there's uncertainty in doing nothing as well. And to me, it's much less tolerable uncertainty.
Could you share with us that study you have on natural gas? I understand the issues with regards to global warming. Just from what I can see, there's so much gas.
And I'm not saying that's definitely happening.
Yeah.
She gave a hypothetical, and I
Yep.
gave a different one, right?
It's
So
true.
There's many different ways that the world can get messed up.
Yeah. Right.
But it can also go well, right?
Right.
This might be great.
It's interesting. I'd be interested in just reading that analysis. It's just interesting. And then, so thank you.
So I didn't say that it was like perfect, and I stand behind it, but I will send it to you.
Sure. Right. And then Julie has her hand up. Julie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. So, I find it really interesting, and I'm
Oh,
really
Julie, we
glad-
can't really hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's a mic issue on your end. So can you please speak clearly into the microphone?
Absolutely. Is this better?
A little bit. A little
Well,
muffled.
give me a minute and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna unplug what I have going on now and I'll be back.
Thank you.
Am I back?
I think it's better.
I think it's better. So if it's not, I'm sorry, but that's the
No,
best
it's
that I can
great.
do. I got a new headset, so.
Thank you, thank you.
Apologies. But I wanted to say thank you for putting this information together, and I know this obviously took a lot of time and effort. I have just a couple of things that I'd like to throw out. So at my age of 50, I remember when they were building Indian Cliffs, and that was going all electric, and Marina Bay was the same way. Everything was electric. That was the big push at the time. And you know, the units that I sell, or the homes that I sell that are electric, people, and if they can't bring gas in off the street, it's still, people are trying to see how they can bring in propane and things like that. So not that this isn't going to happen, but I just hope that everybody can keep in the back of their mind, things change so fast, technology changes, information changes. I, just sold a condo in Dorchester not long ago, and it was all hardwired for the original iPod chargers that were all hardwired in the walls, which was a great idea at the time, and it became very quickly. And none of the younger kids that I showed the property to knew what they were. So, and that happened so fast. But that's just something that I think we do need to keep in mind, that information changes, and that for all of the information that we're getting and that we're hearing, I feel like you could probably find somebody else has printed something or has sent something that would negate a lot of the stuff that we hear. So I just, before we do anything that could make building a house even that much more expensive in the town, or even down the road, I know it doesn't say it now, that they can tell people that, hey, your furnace is no good, but does that mean that I need a new blower motor and that the whole thing has to be replaced and these are not replaceable parts? And there's just a lot into it. So that's really all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Judy.
Can I ask Julie a question?
Judy has a question for you.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, Julie. So, when you were bringing up about marketing houses that had certain features, do you see maybe down the road that houses that do not have this electric capacity might undermarket themselves in comparison to houses that do?
So that's a really tough thing to answer right now. I'll give an example, and this goes by demographics. Young people see all these features and they get really excited. I have a difficult time selling older people, and by older I mean my age and higher, on solar panels, on a house that comes with solar panels. They are not interested, by and large. And some younger people like them. I think it has a lot to do with the age of the people. But again, the technology seems to change so quickly that I think even trying to look 5 years ahead at this point on what's valuable to a consumer is really tough to do. But I will say I have a hard time today, at today's date in February 2024, if the house does not have gas and does not have gas on the street, that's a tough sell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I definitely acknowledge there's a transition curve, and there are climate activists out there pushing for immediate fossil fuel bans, and I'm not here advocating for that. I am very concerned about climate change. It dates from my time as a PhD student working on climate models, and the end game of never abating our use of fossil fuels is some really scary stuff. But I also am not in the camp that thinks that stuff is inevitable and the world's going to wither and die in 20 years if we don't hit this next intense target. I think it's a long-term transition that we must begin, and we must work on it at a reasonable pace. It can't go too fast, because if you've got people freezing in their backyards because you took away their fossil fuels with nothing to replace it, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, I care about climate change because I care about sustaining the comforts of the modern world, and I'm really appreciative of fossil fuels for making that all possible. So I don't want you to think I'm some kind of anti-fossil fuel extremist. That said, solar panels have been around for decades. They're not going anywhere. What the exciting thing about made this law possible in 2021 is that the cost curve of solar panels has just been plummeting, right? So they're getting cheaper and cheaper. I put solar panels on my house first because it's a financial no-brainer. It just makes me buckets of money. I think some of these other things are a little more complicated, but so preferences change slower than technology. I don't think that solar panels and heat pumps are a fly-by-night technology. We've had heat pumps available for cold weather heating for decades as well, but they're also going through a massive shift where they currently beat fuel oil. So I just replaced my fuel oil boiler with whole home heat pumps using units that you couldn't get units sized appropriately to heat my house 15 years ago, but now you can at a price where, considering that it replaces both my boiler and my central air and is more efficient than both, it was a financially prudent thing for me to do, especially once you factor in the mass save rebates. So it's complicated, and it's premature to mandate fossil fuels everywhere, and the state knows that. That's why they've let a limited number of really gung-ho communities pilot that, but for everybody else, it's not even legal to outlaw fossil fuels right now. So like several years ago, there were people bringing town meeting articles to ban fossil fuels in like Brookline and Newton, and those were thrown out in court. So that's not something that's going to happen in 2026, is my opinion. It would take a significant track record and sort of demonstrated affordability, not just for the affluent. I think right now we're with these technologies, kind of where Tesla electric cars were in 2015, right? It's like really cool thing, mostly for rich people, right? And the early adopters bring down the costs for everyone else. Anyway, now I'm speculating, so.
Can you tell me why when we get it, well, it says the house is electrified, you don't have to have, solar's optional, but if it's a mixed fuel, it's mandatory unless it's in a shaded area.
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Why is it? I think it's. I don't know what the rationale of that is. I'm happy to look into it. I think it's like an offset mentality.
But right now, currently, we only have 11% renewable, 0 of that percentage is base load in Massachusetts, per ISO New England.
So if you look on Eversource's website, they claim 75% clean energy, which I think is
Don't look at me.
not true. Well, you work for Eversource.
No, but ISO New England, who delivers the power to everybody,
And
says we have 11%. And that includes
I think the state
Hydro.
clean energy
hydro, yes, thank
portfolio
you.
standard is 25% this year.
What does that mean?
I know,
So it means
does that
you
mean?
get,
Yeah.
you get
Help
power
us
from hydro, wind, solar, biomass, trash, and geothermal and nuclear if we had it, which we do have, I think, 25% nuke. But it's just saying, so if you don't have,
So you're saying solar is 11%.
no, renewable as a whole, as
I
a-
think
of
it's
the
higher than
2020, I saw the 2022 numbers. I didn't see this year for 2023 on ISO New England. But, so if you're all electric, you don't have to put solar in, that sounds counterintuitive.
The only way it makes sense to me is as sort of an offset, like you're doing these emissions, so you have to offset it with a certain amount of.
You're still
clean
having the
electricity.
emissions on the other side. It's like people plug their Tesla and they have 90% of them are fossil fuel power in their Teslas.
That's why you've got the kind of parallel strategy, right? Because these things, a car you buy today or a heating system you put in today will be there in 2050, by and large, or will make it most of the way.
Heating systems won't, no way. They have 10-year warranties, that's it. And stuff tends to break at 12.
it lasts a long time, right?
Are we talking about that breaks in 10?
Like heat pumps,
Heat pumps?
they usually break 2 years after the warranty.
Everything does.
Everything does.
Yeah, it just,
2 days after the warranty.
it's a durable item, and it's
Okay.
5 or 10 years in a day.
But the basic point that these things have a decades lifespan, let's say, decade.
Yep.
And the grid is being shifted to renewable energy in parallel.
But it's never gonna be baseload.
What's base load?
What it takes on like a 0-degree day, cloudy, rainy day with no wind, to have power.
So you're saying,
The minimum amount of power we need to operate.
so you're saying right now, renewables cannot make base load?
No.
Is that what you're saying? So when by no, you're saying no, they can't, not no, what you're saying is no.
No, they can't,
Right.
because
Just for the record.
they don't generate 24/7.
Got it.
So this is one of the key challenges of addressing climate change. It's not the one that homeowners will be working on directly, but the people who operate the grid are aware of these challenges and working on them furiously.
And then,
But the end user is part of the equation, an important part of the equation.
The reason why the building code emphasizes efficiency is because if we shift to EV charging and electric home heating, even using the most efficient end user technologies, if the homes aren't insulated, the power requirements will be impossible for the grid to meet. So you have to constrain demand. They're expecting demand to grow significantly. They need to prevent it from growing even more than that, and that's where efficiency comes in.
can we as the town amend it to make it all electric have solar?
Sorry?
Where it says solar is optional, as a town, when we voted in, can we make it mandatory?
I think we have to choose from one of these three.
No.
No?
So the code is the code, and we just adopt which sort of level of code we like. Sorry to jump in, but we don't get to amend how we do that code here in Milton.
And then the other question is, if we go into a no power situation and you're all electric, how do you heat your house?
That's a great question, and I worried about it too. I'd say, to be fair, I needed electricity to run my oil boiler as well.
Yeah.
You can do that
So-
with a 5 kilowatt generator, not a 24 kilowatt generator.
That is absolutely fair, yeah. So generators, gas generators are still allowed under this building code. And batteries are another option.
Batteries can't start a heat pump from dead load. They can't do it. Unfortunately.
Dead load is,
From off,
yep,
you lose power, it's gotta start back up.
yep.
Battery, I think the Tesla, the most it can do is 26 amps for 12 seconds, 13 seconds. And most of the heat pumps are 30 to 50 amps, and they need it for closer to a minute.
So you can,
But yeah,
You're gonna be
when my
okay with
power's out, my oil heater does not work either.
Pack it.
So,
But you can have a little generator from Home Depot that will run it instead of a, you got
But I
to tow
don't-
behind
but
a
I don't.
truck.
It's all in the
That's just, I'm just,
yeah, no,
I'm
you're
an
you're
electrician and
right.
I do HVAC, this is good for
you know,
me.
the oil burner, it only needs.
It's really
like,
good for me, it's good for my business.
You know, a
but
little micro dot.
There's a
of
big
electricity.
downside that I think everyone needs to be aware of, switching too quickly and not having a backup available in a catastrophic event, like a hurricane. You could be out of power for 2 weeks. If you're all electric home and we don't mandate them to have solar.
That's one reason why having solar on the house is attractive.
Yeah, there's benefits, absolute benefits to it.
And I think another reason why we're getting really far from this, right? But one of the reasons I have
Part of it, though.
so on the one hand, there's we tend to ignore the uncertainty associated with continuing with the status quo. You know, we talk about inches of sea level rise over the next decade with where we are today, but the curves kind of go like this. So if you know, when I was in graduate school looking at these models, we were looking at feedback loops where all the ice sheets on land melt and sea level rise goes up 260 feet. And these sorts of things become, there are people who are trying to scare people in the media, suggesting that like this is happening now, but it's not. It becomes increasingly likely if we don't bend this curve towards net zero emission energy. So I completely agree with you that this can also go too fast, right? Which is why I'm happy to be having a real discussion with you about it and acknowledging the risks, because there are risks. There are risks from doing nothing as well.
Yeah, and the other issue with us doing everything in the U.S., you got other countries, China, India. China's putting on a coal-fired power plant weekly for the next 10 years. India's not too far behind them, so it kind of minimizes what we're doing, although what we're doing helps a little bit. It gets negated by other countries who don't sign on to the Kyoto protocols.
So reel us back in if we go too far. But,
Well, I mean, we put
that
discussion on, right? Where are we at in your brief?
Well, I mean, we're getting, there are, I think, a few slides to, that we can
Plus,
go
I think
into
that
if they're
the
helpful.
citizens who watch these kinds of meetings can perhaps relate to a lot of the discussion here as to things they would like to ask if they were here.
Absolutely. And, I think this is part of a broader context of efforts to address climate change and consequences of not doing so. How fast can you move without throwing the baby out with the bathwater? I think these are all really important questions that I think about all the time, and I'd love to discuss in public if there's patience for it. Just to your comment about what if other countries don't do it, I mean, I think that somebody's got to demonstrate that it's not just possible but beneficial, because I don't believe that getting off of fossil fuels in a way where we sacrifice all the benefits of modern life that's not what I'm in this for, and I don't think it's politically feasible, and if it's heading that way, it won't happen. So somebody has to demonstrate that this can be done, and that's really how I see what Massachusetts is doing, is we're leading the nation in really taking this transition seriously. It's not going to be perfect, but I would rather bought into the strategy and then giving DOER an earful about what's not working to make it successful rather than just say no. So that's why I'm here advocating for it.
To that end, the EU tried it and failed to bring gas back online for power because the renewables don't handle their load.
Yeah, first of all, full disclosure, I work for Eversource. I don't think there's any sort of conflict with what we're talking about in my job, but with a lot of climate change responses, there are other benefits besides the climate change. For example, a heat pump. In New England, we're limited in how much natural gas we can bring into New England. Just the physical pipes coming from Pennsylvania and Texas to New England are only so big. A heat pump is crazy efficient. You've told me this, as well as other people have told me this.
So much better in the last 4 years.
Yeah. So, switching from a natural gas furnace in your house to a natural gas power plant in Connecticut that runs a heat pump in your house means less natural gas coming into New England, which we're constrained. And we are getting off topic. I'm sorry, but everybody's getting off topic, so I thought I'd chime in.
It's part of it, though.
So yeah, I think that the renewable energy transition is difficult. Baseload power is a big issue. There's a bunch of exciting stuff happening with next generation nuclear, next generation geothermal. There's a lot of money to be made in solving that problem, and investment dollars are flowing into it. I'm putting my chips with those people.
Can I ask something about this proposal that we're,
Yes,
so I'm changing the subject a
Go back
bit, and I don't know if my question is for Joe or Josh or who, but as things are proposed now, not what may happen in the future, but as things are proposed now, what we'll be voting on in town meeting only affects new construction, I believe. So start me out. Am I right, Joe?
That's correct.
Okay. What I don't know is, what is new construction? For example, if I take my house and I tear it down to the ground and rebuild it, I think that's new construction.
Correct.
What if I tear down 75% of my house and build it?
It's a renovation.
What if I tear down everything except the chimney? I've heard that as a standard. Or, okay, but no, I think you answered my question. If I tear down 75% of my house and rebuild it, you're saying that's a renovation and not affected by this?
That's correct.
Okay, I think that, I mean,
But what if it's over that 1,000 square feet?
The stretch code will
let's
apply.
clarify, Joe.
That's different than what we're talking about, unfortunately.
Did you hear the question, Joe?
Yeah, if you're doing 1,000 square feet, that's the stretch code that we already have in place.
So not affected by what we're voting on?
No.
Thank you, sorry.
No, that's the question.
No, it's
But wait, so if you're,
Convoluted.
so this may be a stupid question, but, so say you tear down, your house is, I'm gonna have to use easy math, so, I'm not gonna be able to do easy math, but say it's 4,000 square feet, and you knock down to your thing, 75% of it, and you rebuild it, you're not,
Does
if
not
you're
fall
not
into-
adding space, you're going back to the same 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, so you're still, so because it's a pre-existing building, okay, you're not falling into the specialized code.
But because you're renovating over 1,000 feet.
1,000 square feet, you're gonna fall into the stretch code.
Okay, so it doesn't mean you're adding 1,000 square feet, it just means you're changing 1,000 square feet plus, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
I just want to take this opportunity to interject that the DOER has released cost-benefit studies that show that since we've ended up talking about the stretch code, I didn't put it in here because it applies to the stretch code. But in every scenario they looked at, stretch code was lower cost of ownership for the homeowner. Now, I'm not going to pretend there's no uncertainty in that.
No, absolutely it is.
But you have to start somewhere, right? So there's a point in time with the prices as they were when the study was done. It was definitely cheaper, so people would probably want to do it. Anyway.
Can I ask another question? Is there any reason, so it says pre-wiring is required. What would be the reason to, I don't know how to ask this, like you're pre-wiring for the future, but wouldn't you just, if you're wiring for something, wouldn't you just, do you know what I'm asking?
So you have the capacity in the house, if you want to switch your stove from gas to electric, the capacity and electric service is there, it's already pre-wired. You can pull one out, plug the new one in.
Okay.
And the only difference of pre-wired and installed is it's not on a breaker yet.
Okay.
It's labeled, and some guys put it in a box outside, some people put it in the panel itself, and then it gets wired in and it gets turned on. Like some companies will pre-pipe stuff, not put wire in, but the way the code's worded now, you have to pre-wire it, and you can't just pre-pipe it.
So it just means you haven't chosen to buy whatever, like install whatever it would be that would require the electric, you still have the option of going fossil fuel.
Yeah, but you have to have the capacity. So if you didn't have the house
Right.
set up for electric, you might only need a 200 amp service. If you have,
But this
when you
is,
go all electric, you might need a 400 or 600 amp service, depending on how many square feet the house is,
okay.
what your loads, heating loads are.
Think of it as a consumer protection that you may want at today's prices to be heating with natural gas. But the world may change 10 years from now such that that's not economical for you anymore. Switching over to electric is now a much less expensive project than if you have to
So for
run new
instance, we
lines.
were looking at heat pumps at our house and we're on 100 amps right now, and we would need 200 amps to do that, and that costs like $5,000 or $6,000 to upgrade just the electrical panel. So like, I wish a previous owner had done that, because we're not gonna do that.
You get money from the feds on that now. You get
Yeah.
$4,000.
But also the time to do it is when your walls are
Right,
already
when the walls are
down,
open, right.
right? And then, right.
When it's new construction, it's like literally a third less to do it.
Say that again?
It's like a third less.
Oh.
If you're doing it when the walls are open, then cut and patch in and.
So does this add, this might be a stupid question, but does this add cost to new construction?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the rebate, it's the, the rebates and the long-term use is where the money,
There are definitely instances where it's cheaper upfront as well, especially with incentives.
You can get
So I
15,000
can-
back on the HERS
I can
rating.
make sure that you guys get the DOER cost benefit study.
I only ask because you said something to the effect of, the developer and the end user aren't necessarily the same, right? And so who's getting the benefit? Is it the builder, or is it the end user, or is it both?
The end user.
The end user
I
does
don't
versus
think
the
the
builder. The
builder
builder
benefits.
isn't getting,
Unless he's paying for the HERS rating and he's taking the HERS rebate,
okay.
then he'd benefit. And the homeowner wouldn't get the rebate, but I'm sure that would come off the cost.
The
Yeah.
homeowner will benefit from the lower energy costs.
And Josh has his hand up. Josh?
Thanks, Dave. I just wanted to say the findings from that DOER study are in the presentation materials I've given to the planning board and select board over the last few weeks, and are available already on the town's website. We have a dedicated page to stretch energy codes under the community tab, but I can quickly share my screen and just show those slides that show the cost benefit analysis.
Oh, I forgot.
That.
I saw that one.
So in a smaller building, it's about 30,000 benefits for a builder and 1,000 annually for a home buyer. In a gas building, that same building, it's a sort of additional costs to both the builder and home buyer. Those savings are a little bit smaller when it comes to a large building, down from 28 to 20,000, and down from 1,000 to about 5,500 a year. And again, those costs are high for a builder in a large family, but actually aren't as terrible for a home buyer. So I just want to say that material is available on the town website here at Stretch Energy Codes. So if you go to the community tab,
That was sent to us.
it's right here under our resilience and sustainability info. Just wanted to share that for folks as a resource.
Feels like we're winding down. Were there any other key points that we need to come away from this with?
Maybe I should at least get my conclusion slide up there. We'll probably feel like we've heard them before, but just for the people who are scrolling to the right on YouTube, looking for the end, we can put that up there.
Your last slide?
Yes, the specialized energy code key points. Not the last,
Next
so
to us.
second to last. So this is my take on the key points, that the new requirements that we're voting on, which hopefully is clearer now than it was at the beginning, if not completely clear, apply to new construction only. The spirit of this is to encourage all-electric buildings, which are cost competitive, healthier, and necessary to address climate change in the long run, but still preserves choice for present and future energy needs today. So fossil fuels are still an option, and they're likely to remain an option in the near future. And it's a consumer protection that avoids costly retrofits in the future to electrify down the road. So I will leave it there.
Thank you. Any further questions for tonight? Judy?
If we have a question after tonight, we can just
Sure.
email, and
Absolutely.
Alex and you would clarify.
I'd be happy to work with you on it.
Thank you very much, because sometimes thoughts come, oh, wait a minute, Amanda said, I wonder if, thank you.
I enjoy thinking about this, so I'll think about it with you.
You know if these include solar? The DOE stuff, DOER?
I don't know the contents in detail, no.
So that's a huge cost.
Because that was a stretch code study. So that's why I didn't link to it from this.
The solar's the
I
biggest.
probably should have expected we'd end up spending a lot of time talking about the stretch code, but
There's a lot of nefarious companies out there too.
yeah.
So Alex, I guess just
Hold on,
one.
Jay, it's Jay.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Jason.
Jay.
I guess I'm sort of going to ask the warrant committee, what information do we need? What experts do we need to have come talk to us? I want to be sure we've turned over every stone that we think is important. And I'm glad we had Joe and Josh here. I'd like to have Joe and Josh online the next time we're talking about this also. But that's my question for the group. Who do we need to hear from?
I'm curious if anyone knows a cost per square foot increase with the enhanced to the regular stretch code, just so you have a baseline to see it on new construction.
That's good.
Who could do
Not me,
What kind of a person could give us that?
the building department possibly.
Do you want to reach out to them, see if you can?
Yeah, I'll send Joe an email.
Right, because I'm thinking we're going to talk more about our scheduling, right? Is come back again in at least a couple weeks. So I think we have a couple weeks to work on this stuff. Judy?
So, we just built a new fire building in our town, across from us. Is that all electric, and would it meet the requirement? Would it meet the goal of what stretches now and what it could be? In other words, it's not just homeowners, but we're doing it with our buildings too?
It does apply to municipal buildings under the commercial code. And I think don't quote me on this either. I talked to Christopher Hayden about the fire department, and it has electric space heating, so heat pumps for space heating. The cost benefit on electric water heating wasn't there, so that's heated with gas. It's pre-wired for solar, but the panels were not in the budget to be there on day one. So I think solar will they hope to have it happen eventually. Yeah.
So if we were to build, let's say, a new school,
Dave, find another building.
That would fit, that would have to be required, that would be required.
That would
Yeah,
fall,
that would
if we
be it.
adopt it, it'll fall under that, and that's,
Yeah.
And that was going to be a question. I was like, any construction moving forward, state mandated or otherwise, under 40B, MBTA, school, municipalities, everything is.
That was part of the discussion for why bring this into the public discussion now, because
And that was actually one of my questions. So I was wondering, you've been working on this for a while, right? And I was thinking about it because I know there was something from Sustainable Milton a couple of years ago about, was that the stretch
well,
goal?
we took this up actively in January.
Okay.
I've certainly been hearing about this for a few years, but
Okay.
hoping somebody else would do it.
Well, thank you very much.
right?
Yeah, thank you very much.
multifamily doesn't require solar, period. According to the metric.
I wonder if that's a
Typo?
but I'll check.
All right, so back to Jay.
Well, and going along with Jay, maybe also just bringing us all back to, like, what are we here to do around this particular issue?
So, right,
What is our mandate?
it's a warrant article, right? You know, the wording is basically, you know, shall the town adopt, and it references specialized opt-in code. So it's, you know, it's basically what's being asked of us is a recommendation as to whether the town should say yes or no to this code as written, like Josh has pointed out to us. We can't get in there and tinker with it and say we like this part or we don't like that part. So what's asked of us is a recommendation to the town as to whether or not the town should vote yes at town meeting to adopt this.
But we can't
Adopt a
vote.
specialized energy.
The opt-in, right, the top triangle.
But if you don't understand the whole concept
That's right.
of what this is, you really have to perhaps branch out a little bit to get a better understanding. If you're coming in from, let's say, point zero, which it seems to me from the questions being asked around this table, which we are ordinary citizens of the town, there's a lot of us out there that probably have the same questions. What is this? How did it get here? Why are we doing it? And so in many respects, we are all the people around us that don't understand this. And without that, you can politicize this and vote yes or no in accordance with your political beliefs. Or you could try and understand it to the very best of your ability and decide if this is really based on your questions, your answers, your research, your understanding, and your knowledge that you might gather about this. Is this good for all the people in our town? And we will say, yes, it is, via a yes vote for the stretch code, or we will say, no, it's not, based on what we learned. This might not be good at this time for our town.
Well, and that's what I wanted to bring us back to, the stretch code. A lot of what we talked about today was the stretch code, and that is not what we're debating or deciding on. We're deciding on the specialized tier and whether or not we're going to...
Supersizing those fries.
Right. So I think I certainly, in light of this conversation, want to go back and read everything again sort of through that lens and just make sure I'm not mixing up anything that we were talking about today that's specific to the stretch code that is beyond our control, that it's happening. We're in it, it's happening.
But I do honestly believe, I mean, I asked someone before I came to the meeting, I go, you know anything about this? When did it happen? What is it? Am I doing it? Are you doing it? It's like, whoa, was I asleep? I think I think some of these questions and answers to the various people is representative of where many of our citizens are.
That's really important.
Me, raise hand first.
Totally agree.
So to those that have been following the stretch and this environmental endeavor, they're very knowledgeable. And that's where information is going to come from to make a good decision for our town.
Agreed.
That's just the view from my front porch.
And you're helping draw it out.
I don't know.
Well, in a way,
Yeah.
because now, who knows, people could debate anything. Oh, gee, we heard the warrant committee say green is the best color.
It's a lot more fun to discuss it with you all than to sit in front of my PowerPoint slides alone.
I don't know if this question is for Joe or Josh or both. Can the commercial be implemented and then the following year, the residential, once we get our hands wrapped around it on the commercial side? Or do they both have to go in at the same time? Since they're two different CMRs, or think you could do them separately? Am I,
No, they both go into effect at the same time.
it's horrible.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
yep, go ahead.
I was rewatching your presentation to the select board, and there was discussion about how do we communicate this to the public, and I think a little bit of a takeoff on Judy's point, and similar to the MBTA communities and how that seemed to be a big surprise to people. Has anything been done since your meetings with them in terms of communication or public outreach?
So I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that I'm the chair of the Climate Action Planning Committee.
Correct.
This is the thing that I worry about the most. So, you know, I'm a data scientist by profession. I kind of wish I'd taken some marketing courses at some point. But we really, one thing that we have agreed on within the Climate Action Committee is that the biggest part of what we need to do is engage the town so that people know what kind of things we're thinking about, what our recommendations may be. It's a year-long process we're working through where we're really trying to front load a lot of the public engagement. This is maybe too long an answer to your question.
No.
Since then, I've been focused on having one-on-one discussions first. I really hope that we can do a great job reaching people, and I'm thinking about things like video content. We're thinking about Milton Times. There's definitely going to be some public forums. I'd like to make it easier to sort of consume that information on people's own time or the internet. But I don't really, I'll admit to you, I'm no expert. I'm definitely worried about doing it well. And I have a day job just like all of you.
Oh, yeah.
So will it be in
Gonna try
time
hard.
for the
For the
vote
May,
at May?
yeah, that's the question. It seems like in order to educate folks by the May vote.
I don't think there's enough time.
Yeah, on an endeavor that carries a lot of worthiness, and most likely, the environmental issues are in the news every day. You can't open your newspaper without something in there about the environment. So it's not like everyone's got their head in the sand. I just think maybe, would it be more beneficial to make sure there was a lot of outreach before we make this decision? To make it easier for the people in town, or they'll just learn it after?
I definitely plan to do as much as I can, and hopefully, get help so that it's not just me. I think the universal experience I hear from folks who've tried is that no matter how much you do, there's always some people who won't know until it's already a done deal. But we can always do better than last time. And I think that one of the ways to do better is look at the people who are making millions of dollars on YouTube. Like they have these videos that are 5 minutes long. They get to the point in the first 30 seconds, and I think we can do stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I'll sort of play devil's advocate with that. I mean, we can do as much participant engagement, citizen engagement as we can in the next 2 months, or as much as we can in the next 8 months, and we'd probably reach the same amount of people, approximately. And I guess I think the best thing that maybe we can do is, make sure that we as a warrant committee ensure we turn over every stone, we ask every question that's going to come up at town meeting ahead of time and have an answer ready. And also, I think it'll help, and I'm going to sound selfish because I'm being selfish. This change is mostly affecting people who don't currently live in Milton who are going to come here and build something. Now, some exceptions, some Milton people will want to build a new Milton house, but I'm being sort of selfish here. If you live in Milton and you have a house here, it's not going to affect you. And if you redo your house, it's not going to affect you. It's only going to affect the people who are moving in here and building a house.
For now.
I mean, for now is all we got. For now is all
No,
we can
that's
talk
true,
about.
Jay.
So, we want to make the right choice. We don't want to do anything to harm people who are moving to our pleasant town. But I think that makes the pill easier to swallow. If you're uncomfortable, if you're confused, what is this? Oh, wait, it doesn't affect me? Okay, I'm going to move on with my life.
That's a perspective.
It affects affordability of housing.
Right.
I mean, it's.
Indirectly, things
Yeah, it's
affect
on
us a
both,
lot.
yeah, it goes on both sides, but that's, seems to be a big thing as of now.
I don't know, I mean, I look at this, it's like, we should care about 5 years from now, and we should care 10 years from now. You know, we shouldn't settle for, well, this is what we're looking at now, you know?
I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, I'm saying that the state can move the ball, right? However, which way they want.
That's something I
And so I have more work to do, so I'm just kind of commenting, Jane, just what you said, but that's my concern. 10 years from now, you lose the boiler. I'm sorry, Mr. Fundling, but you got to clear this whole thing out. You got a kid in college.
that's something I was gonna,
You know, like that's kind of my thing is on the Warrant Committee is like, how much is this going to cost? When the municipal buildings have to get built in the schools, we're going to pay for that, right? We're going to pay for all the fancy new electric stuff and the building itself. So like, what about our homes? And like I said, 5, 10, 15 years from now, especially new families in Milton who bought that little house and like, oh, we can build off. And we have 3 kids under the age of 5. So that's kind of just like what's like percolating in my head right now.
I was,
That the projections available now suggest it's cheaper to go all electric. And there's a lot of effort going into sustaining that trajectory and a lot of effort going against making fossil fuels the better choice 10 years from now.
But what about hydrogen?
Yeah, I think.
Well,
I mean, I
you know,
guess-
can I address?
Go ahead.
Okay. I've heard a lot of people say this evening, we don't know how the specialized code will change in the future. But that's true for the specialized code, for the stretch code, and for the base code. I'm looking at this. Base code is based on the International Code 2021. That tells me that wasn't the code 15 years ago. That's been updated in the last few years. So if the state of Massachusetts wants to do something radical or draconian or whatever, they might change the base code as well as the stretch code and the specialized code.
Well, I expect that.
Okay, so
I expect that, but like if you go all the way to the top, you box yourself in now. So if it's a draconian move in the middle, we're set up for. Yeah, Jay. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm more kind of just commenting, but I think the question for people is, how much is this going to cost? And this is like upfront costs.
And can I pay for it?
Yeah, and can I afford it? And can I afford to stay in town, or do I have to put another mortgage on my house? I think people want to know, how much is this going to cost me? Now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
And they're not against environmental.
I don't think anyone's. I think this is like, and I wish I could have solar. We looked at heat pumps. So like I said, I'm in the beginning, and I have a lot more reading to do. So I'm kind of just more commenting and just everything of what I've just heard today. So, sorry.
So back to Julia's question, what do we need to, and Jay's, what do we need to do now at the Warrant Committee to be able to move this forward? And it would be, and I don't know who would do it, but, and maybe even Fire Chief Madden could come and talk about the cost of the fire station related to the electric and why it's not all electric. Because it seems like we should have done that. So there's got to be something there. And then what is going to be the cost? The true dollar number, not a funny estimate, but the cost of doing this all electric for the school and all electric for the next fire station, because they're on the horizon. We need to know what that's going to impact us for the whole budget equation that we're going to encounter. So I don't know how we get that done, but that's.
Gonna come up with square footage cost. based on it. I think that's
I mean, that is
the dumbest
an
down
estimate,
level.
a very basic model, right?
I don't think you
So,
can
I
get
mean,
any more succinct, though.
That's what I'm
because
saying. There's
But
there's
it- but
nothing but
even
estimates
to-
when you're talking about the future.
And I understand that, but what do we think it's going to be? And why isn't this building here all electric?
30%.
Why is it not 100%?
On the low end. No, 30%
I
increase.
think when they were doing RFPs, there was a real run-up in the cost of solar panels during the pandemic from supply chain issues.
Everything
That's
went-
a concern
everything
I
went
have. I personally think it would be better if there was some flexibility about the timing of solar. I did reach out to DOER about like what if there's a delay in interconnection. And he said that one way people get around it is you can issue a temporary certificate of occupancy and like give them a year to sort it out. So I mean, I think there will be a lot of the state's not going to have a lot of success if people are out in the cold. you know what I mean? To being reasonable with issues like that.
I don't know if the point's relevant, but I'll bring it up anyway. So I think as you're thinking about the future, I think there also has to be that thought around if things are moving in one direction. So to the question of like, you know, is this going to change or what's the cost going to be as things become, as the market moves in one way, like that people are moving away from boilers the way they are now and they're moving towards heat pumps, like that boiler becomes more expensive because there are few of them because more people are moving. Like I think there are all of those market things in play that you also have to think about when you're thinking about that future cost. So it's sort of, it's not like everything stays static. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like as you're playing it out, like, okay, if more people are moving towards this and there's, you know, a greater supply of heat pumps or more things are going in that direction and costs are coming down, then that, do you know what I mean? Like as you're kind of thinking about the whole piece of it, I think there's a lot to think about in that regard, not just using today's dollars and today's availability and in sort of the today's market and thinking about the future. That makes sense. Like if we're kind of projecting out and thinking what the impact would be in the future to those families or to whomever, like the whole market dynamics could be changing at that same time. So I think it's just something to consider.
For my two buildings, though, I'd like to get some sort of estimate.
Yeah, but yeah.
School building.
I did,
Solution.
I reached
think
out
that-
to Sean
I think
O'Rourke
that
today. I would have done it earlier, but I was traveling over the weekend. And I definitely want to meet him and hear.
Right.
Because I don't have an answer for you on how it would impact the school. There are certainly nonprofits out there studying it, and I've seen reports that say, oh, an all-electric school is absolutely cheaper to build, cheaper to operate, better for the students. You know, but,
Has anybody done it?
Yeah. Weymouth, and they've
I
had
think that we need to go and
issues.
gather some real experience and not just
That
from
would be good. And
one side, yeah.
And didn't you also mention that some communities are all in, that wanted to do more? They're all electric, Brookline or Newton?
So part of the climate law, there had been this wave of communities banning fossil fuels around 2020, and it was challenged in court. And so the state's response to that demand, so I mean, people were saying, we want to do this. They created a pilot program for 10 communities to opt into, and that's full now.
And who are they? If you
One of
can
them is Brookline.
get that info to us.
You can always put
Somerville?
Brookline
Is
down
that-
on those lists.
Somerville, yeah, it's
I don't know.
there's two of them on the Cape. Brookline, there's someone.
I think Brookline is the first one where it actually went into effect like recently, and there were
Oh, okay.
headlines about it.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, we got a hand up. Josh.
Sorry, just to say that the
You did.
list of the communities who have been accepted, Acton, Aquina, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Brookline, Cambridge, Concord, Lincoln, and Lexington. And conditional acceptances have been given to Arlington and Newton.
Even then, if
Northampton and Somerville are backup communities, given whether or not those conditional approvals are granted.
To go
Thank
all
you.
electric?
for new construction.
Oh, just new
Yeah.
construction again. I thought-
And no gas hookups, period.
Great. This has been awesome. Thank you. We'll table this conversation, for another time. In the meantime, everybody please do your homework, right? And then we will come up with a list of people that we're going to ask to please come back. And just thank you, Josh. Thank you, Joe, for coming tonight. It was very helpful, very helpful. Thank you, Alexander, for coming. It's
Thank you for
wonderful.
having me.
Thank you, Warrant Committee, as well. Thank you. So we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is going to be the approval of minutes, of which there are multitudinous, voluminous.
You can't.
And what's that?
We have
I said he
minutes
can't.
I
prior
abstain.
to the current.
Right, so we'll just ask people who, when we go through the minute vote, if you weren't a member of the warrant committee on those dates, just kindly please abstain. Karen, can you help us out here? Because there's so many minutes that if it's possible,
Thanks, Alex.
I would like, maybe we could do like two votes, with the
Prior to July.
prior to and the after to. Or if there's not, because anybody can abstain. If the prior to abstain from the vote, we could just have the old crew make a motion. Actually, we should probably do two. The first question is going to be, were there did anybody have any issues to raise with regards to any of the minutes? So the first question would be just, are we ready to move to a vote? It looks like we're ready to move to a vote, okay? So maybe what we're looking for is two motions then, like a pre-July motion and a second July motion.
Make a motion to, any discussion and accept a vote on minutes prior to July 1st. Those who were present, those who were part of the warrant committee before July 1st.
Okay, so that's the motion.
Second?
Jay seconds. Karen, could you do a roll call vote, please? Do we need a roll call vote? You look at me like
Well, we just wanted to say that I do have some minor edits, but they're like Scrivener
I did say discussion.
Scrivener errors.
edits.
yep.
So I don't know, I can like give them to her. It's like they're nothing at all. They're nothing at all, adjusting who said what or anything. It's
Okay,
none of that. I don't know how you want to do that.
I don't know how it affects the vote, if you wanted to say with Lori's corrected scriveners, none of them are substantive.
so they're just sort of typos?
Yeah.
The April one.
Fine, so we can make a motion to accept them, subject to typographical review and correction. Okay, so that's,
New motion.
what's that?
New motion?
Is that a new so I make a friendly amendment?
Oh, yes.
Do you accept that?
Yes.
It's accepted. Jay's accepted. Tom's okay with it. Council is giving his approval. All right,
So this could be roll call,
yes, please.
and so this is prior to July,
Yep.
and I'm gonna just call out everyone who's here. Dave, we'll start, oh, you're last, I'm sorry. Tom?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Julie Joyce?
Yes.
Abstain.
Does she need to abstain?
He's abstaining.
Abstain.
We think you might need to abstain, Julie Joyce.
I just heard my name. Yep.
Yep.
Abstain.
That's abstain, great.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tim?
Abstain.
Julia?
Abstain.
JJ?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Oh, Dave,
Abstained. Motion carries. Thank you.
okay.
Okay, we're looking for a second motion. It'll be something like the same to include
I didn't finish them.
any
We'll accept Scrivener's.
Scrivener's typographical review if necessary,
From July 2023 to
from July 2023 to
present.
present. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so I think that was, Judy made the motion, Tom seconded it.
I did.
Sure.
For once, I was very quiet.
We all understood.
Okay, Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Julie Joyce,
Got to go for lunch.
You're muted.
She's muted. Go back to her.
we'll come back to Julie. Kristen,
Yes.
Tim Lyons,
Yes.
Julia Maxwell,
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Judy.
Yes.
We'll try Julie Joyce again. Then we'll go to Dave.
Do you need me? I think we're okay, right?
Good, yeah.
I abstain. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion carries. Awesome. Thank you. Like, that's big to get our,
Yeah.
we have so many minutes.
Thank you,
We're
Lord.
already
very
pulling,
detailed.
you know, complaints and all that. We don't need more.
Okay.
All right.
You get high marks. I've been roaming around tracking
Okay,
minutes.
last item is just sort of get going on Warrant. Famous last words. I don't think this is going to be that bad.
Oh, you said it.
I said that out loud on the record. It's over. So,
So now no one will ever believe.
because the read, I don't know, there's various ways of looking at it, but it's starting to sound like that town administrators put together a balanced budget, and it's starting to look like the select board is not going to be recommending a budget override. The, don't look at me like that.
Well,
Change it.
So there's going to be discussion, you can have feelings about it, but that simplifies. Then, you know, as far as the other petitions, other articles, we don't have, you know, we have the opt-in, we've just seen it. We know it's complicated, there's a lot going on, but it's not going to put us in a crisis. You know, there are types of, you know, articles that we can have, which push us more towards crisis. So I think that, you know, this go-around is looking like it's going to be pretty straightforward, okay? Okay, and so then what I think we're going to try to do this time is not do formal subcommittees, like maybe in teams of 1 or 2 to go out and talk to department heads, et cetera. Now, we do have we have a school budget subcommittee because, you know, schools are such a big part of the budget, and in order to have transparency because of just the size of it, you know, Amanda is the chair of that subcommittee, so you've been doing your meetings, they've been public and all that. That's the only one that we really are kind of treating that way. So what I've got is I've got the list. I'm looking at Nick's annual town meeting warrant articles list that he gave us of all the articles, and I've highlighted the ones that involve the departments, right? And so I'm just going to, we'll go down the list. I'll just ask for volunteers, for people who can reach out to the department heads, talk to them a little bit, because then what we'll be doing is we'll be bringing in all the department heads to come and give their explanation, because we now have all the budgets. We have like their budgets. Nick is going to be, I think they're saying he's going to be finalizing on the town side going into select board meeting on Tuesday. So we should have a budget from him. So sort of procedurally, so if we go out and start talking to these people now, then what happens is, like, next week, Nick has his budget. We bring him in shortly thereafter with sort of town budget. And then we bring in the department heads, and then we work through, okay? Any questions about that? Okay. Capital budget appropriation.
Will you read through them
Yeah,
all
can you
so
read
we
the
can
whole list
consider
first?
them? And
Yep, sure. And that's a question that I have for capital budget, because in the past, we've had a warrant committee member sitting with the capital budget, because there's always a recommendation. Is that you?
Sorry.
Okay. So it'll be you then, probably. All right, so I'll read through the ones I got, and then I kind of went through this. If anybody sees any omissions or things that we should task people with, or if somebody has an interest, they really want to get in there on the water enterprise fund appropriation, we just go crazy. Okay, they're going to be capital budget appropriation, which is going to be Lori, public safety, so that's police, fire, general government, boards and committees appropriation, public works, health department, library is an interesting one. Because the library can change, it seems, sometimes. You know what I mean? So sometimes interesting things come out of library, cemetery, parks, consolidated facilities. So usually what we've kind of done in the past, consolidated facilities, public works get taken up together, right? I didn't highlight schools. Another one, maybe, that's interesting. Blue Hills Regional Technical School appropriation. It's a lot of money.
But it's based upon the number of students.
But it's based upon the
Yeah, we
numbers.
don't have any real say on that.
Yeah, we don't. Okay, fine. All right. Community preservation funds, like they do their own thing. They've reached out to us. I'm setting up a meeting with them. So that's kind of what we got: capital, public safety, general government, boards, committees, public works, health, library, cemetery, parks, and consolidated facilities.
And so for those of us who are new, the goal here is just to understand the budget that they have created and are presenting?
Yeah. I think what we do is, like, usually what I've done is you reach out, set up a meeting, we Zoom, and just go get their budget. What is it? And, like, most of the time, like, when Nick Milano does his budget, he goes, we kind of do two. We go year over year, and then needs based. So there's always two, and they're really good. Like most of the departments, they just face it. Like, they're not going to get a bonanza. So most of them, they're always coming in at their 2%, 3%. Schools is always a little bit bigger. Like this year, they're at what, like 3%, 4%?
8%?
What? School's always a little bit bigger, 8%. Everybody else comes in at like 3%, And they're sort of fatalistic about that. And they'll just, you'll go through it and they'll say, this is what we'd love to have, but this is what we know we're going to get. Let's go through it. And they tell you where the changes are, give you some understanding. Sometimes they've got money that's left over because they're, a lot of times what happens is sometimes somebody retires and they bring somebody in who's paid less, et cetera, and they can give you a little bit of understanding of what their budget is, and we just want to understand it, I guess, because part of what we are, one way of looking at the warrant committee is like we're like the finance committee, if you will, and sometimes it's basic oversight.
Well, so that was my next question. So we're here to understand them, to then do what with that information?
Yeah. So then ultimately, what will happen with regards to each of these departments is a line item in the budget. And so really when we're looking, ultimately will be meeting and voting our recommendation, yes or no. So if for instance, if there was just something there that was a problem,
But are we there to push back on the problem?
I mean, if there is one, sure, right, yeah.
Commentary.
To get them to amend the budget based on that pushback?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't, as the warrant committee, if we disagree, we can recommend a no. We can.
But recommending a no is different than getting them to change the budget, so we could recommend a yes.
No, yeah. I think you're
Is
right.
that a possibility for us? Are we supposed to do that?
I don't think at this point I don't think we can get them to change it. I think their budget, what they do is they put their budget together, they send it to the town administrator. And then town administrator takes the budget and proposes a town budget. And so it looks like the town administrator will then adopt their numbers and their budget as part of it. Then it goes to the select board, and then they make this is our approved budget now. So then by the time it gets to us, like we're at oversight, we're digging in there. If we have a problem with it, I don't think at this point we can make them change it. Maybe if it got to that point where we're bringing it up at the warrant committee that we have a problem with something in particular, we're uneasy with it, we're thinking about it, no, maybe that's something that could be changed. But,
I think I disagree in that we're not recommending a yes or a no for any of these. We're recommending a number. What each of these asks
That's
is to see what sum of money the town will appropriate. And if somebody said, if Nick says the budget for this line item should be $1 million, and we think the line item should be $900,000, we recommend $900,000. Now, that could have all sorts of consequences, but I think we recommend a number for each, not a yes or no.
well, I mean, I think you're right. I think that's I guess I was going to say that's what I meant, is like, but you said it better, Jay, you did, like, is that like, if this budget is X and we think that it is Y too big because of reasons that we have, and so then we are going to say that when I say recommend a no, is like what we would do is we say we recommend X minus Y. And then in our comments, we explain to the town why we think that budget line item should be X minus Y. Y being the problem that we had. And then it's up to the town to decide.
So can I ask a question about that? Because then the whys, like, so say, I understand it more when it's a need-based as opposed to a level spend, right? So level, it's like we're funding what we're funding, we're keeping the positions, et cetera. Unless we're saying we are understaffed, in which case we're asking them to go over budget, which is something, or we're saying that we're overstaffed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm making it simple. But, so that one, I mean, seems less, I'll just say like less likely in a way, like it's sort of level spending. Where it seems like the needs-based is where the discussion comes in, because you're asking for more money, and we're saying from a fiscal standpoint, no, we don't think that we should incur X amount more or not. I guess my question comes into, there's a lot of subjectivity in saying, I disagree with this line item because we haven't been there to build that budget and have the, I guess, where does our role begin and end? Do you know, so, because what might be important to you might not be important to me, but we're not the ones who own the budget that was put before us. We're looking at it from a number standpoint.
That's true. And then the thing is that we are voting on a bucket of money.
Right.
So if we take Y out of it because we say something like, oh, you hired these 6 people with one-time funds and built those 6 people into our budget forever. It's time to take them out. That's what we think. But we vote an appropriation.
Right.
Whoever department that is could say, you know what, we like those people.
Right.
And we're just going to slosh the money around this way and slosh the money around that way, because ultimately we can't make them do anything.
Right.
We can just vote the
number.
bottom line.
Right.
So,
So like if you're saying, to your point, so that's 400,000, they're like, fine, we'll find 400 someplace else. We're not taking your recommendation. That's not our
Purview.
We're saying, we may disagree with that, here's our reason
Yeah.
why, but at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
just the number.
it's always amazing how, places that it get cut to the bone with no fat, nothing left over, can find money.
So last we heard from Nick, the budget was not balanced by like $3 million or something, so that has been rectified.
Yeoman's work.
It's what I'm
It's been
saying, it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
It's been improved.
Okay.
It'll be interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting.
Still off a little bit, but not enough.
You
It's
know,
around
I
the
can't
air
wait,
at this
I can't
point.
wait to see it.
Okay, thank you.
So, all right.
I mean, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but like, there was a budget I worked on last year that every year they allocate more to that budget than they spend, every year. And I talked to Nick about this as recently as this morning, so probably by the time it gets to us, that budget will be smaller. But if it wasn't,
What line item would that be? Health insurance?
no, of course not, no.
Ah, Jay.
Say it.
Don't
Health
leave
insurance.
us in suspense. Come
I'm
on.
gonna,
Come on.
we pay about $30,000 or $40,000 in veterans benefits every year.
Oh, okay.
But we budget $100,000. I am not trying to sick a lynch mob on me saying that I'm going to cut veterans benefits. I'm just saying, let's have the budget match more of what we pay. Not to cut any benefits at all. We will still pay every
But they
single
don't
benefit.
use the funds for anything
Exactly.
else.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
sort of- Does that go into the?
I'm just a little sheepish about saying I want to cut
No,
cut
well,
that budget because
I think, yeah, our town is pretty good about the veterans issues.
yeah.
Um,
I was sheepish to say the budget.
Okay,
I'm
but I
talking
think
about,
your
but-
question, but the question there is.
Does it go to free cash?
So are
Yes, it
you,
would.
so what's your,
So I'd say, I mean, as of this morning, what Nick presented is still has a negative, so, if we got to cut somewhere, that's a place to cut, and,
that, yeah, that's.
Right size the.
yeah.
All right, so we can have that conversation. All right, so Lori, your capital budget appropriation person?
I am.
And I'm very interested in that, so I'd like to learn more about it from you.
Well, there's a,
Lori and Jay, and Judy?
No, no. oh, no.
Sorry.
I say there's a meeting Thursday. You're welcome to
Is
come.
anyone interested in doing the cemetery?
You want cemetery?
Oh, yeah.
I did cemetery last year, so I could take that one.
Kristen?
Oh, do you want it?
I think that only needs one person. It's such a small budget. I don't know, or it was Dream and I that did it last year. But if you want it, that's fine.
I have other choices.
All right, so we'll do Kristen. It's a beautiful cemetery.
It is a beautiful spot.
All
You
right,
practically live right on it, right?
I do. I plan on spending a long time. I love that cemetery. It's gonna be a long time.
Eternal flame.
I love it. My son Eden did his Eagle Scout project in there, so those bird boxes that you see. It's the circle of life. All right, so, police, fire. Tom, you wanna help me on that?
I'll help you on that, sure.
You're getting all the
All
notes.
right, Dave and Tom will do police and fire.
I can do public health.
You wanna do public health?
Does anyone else, did they do it? and
The
they
health
want it back?
department?
I'm happy to do it, but I'm not married to it.
Oh, it doesn't matter to
Doesn't
me.
matter to me.
I have lots of choices.
You guys wanna do it together? What's the,
Is it a big one, or I imagine not?
No.
you gotta find out where the director of the health department is stashing all the money.
This is how rumors start, David.
Okay, general government is,
I did it last year. Poor Nick has to put up with all my questions, because it's like.
Well, then you won't have any this year. So you can take it.
you
can
want to
take
do
a
it again,
break.
Jay?
I do, actually.
All right, Jay. Boards and committees. Jay, did you do that too, Jay?
I didn't.
Is there anything to that?
That was me, Dave.
JJ, you want to do that again?
Sure.
All right, thanks. Public Works, I think Public Works and Consolidated Facilities go well together.
I'll take it.
You want to do it, Tim? What I've actually done on that, did you do it last year, Tim?
He wasn't here.
He
I
wasn't
wasn't
here.
here.
I did it.
You did it,
Public
like,
health.
what I've done
Board
with
of
that
Health.
is do them like at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
basically,
Same thing, more or
it's the
less.
same, it's like, when I've done that in the past, like John Driscoll and I did it, it's like, it was for us, it was like a half an hour.
Yeah, it's straightforward.
Because their budgets are,
Yeah, what they are.
they are what they are.
Bare bones.
You know, and while you're talking, you know, Chase handles the water enterprise fund and the sewer enterprise, and those, the enterprise funds, if you just want to talk to him just for quick background on that.
Yeah, and Tim, I'd like to talk to you about I've been digging into the school electrics bills, so that might be, you know, and I've been wanting to talk to the consolidated facilities about it.
Bad.
Weird.
Balance loads.
Loads. Okay, library,
No.
I did it last year with JJ, I can do
They're
it.
not balanced.
Amanda and JJ,
Demand.
Yeah, that was
awesome.
great.
It was great, it was great.
It's interesting.
I remember that, it was great.
You're such
Huh?
nothing.
It was memorable. Parks? Tom?
If anyone else?
It's
All
on my-
right.
It's on my list, but if you did it before, then.
Okay, so
Gotta jump in. Don't let
I think, you know, so,
Not yet,
So
but we're
I-
not done.
Then take library.
What can we
Then
sign up
take
people who
where-
aren't here for?
Aren't we?
Wait, what happened to Blue Hills?
we'll
don't
give,
do
you know,
that.
I was thinking we should give somebody
library.
employer benefits and unemployment appropriate.
Some sucker.
I don't.
So, right, I mean, the rest of it,
Jay gets that.
She could, you didn't get, she's on the committee.
Yeah,
Do you
I
want to
don't-
do
I don't
library
know.
instead? Or,
you want to get on you
or
want
did you
to,
want
Sure.
parks?
want to get on, you
Happy to do either.
want to get
Wherever
on?
I can be helpful.
Why don't you go on library?
Okay.
I can take that.
You gonna take that
She can take that from me if you want.
from
I have to
you?
take the school.
Okay, so it'll be,
Was anyone else on that or just me?
JJ.
Okay.
JJ knows the ropes.
What's the
Excellent.
audit appropriation?
Yep.
That's
Just
what
an
we pay our
amount.
auditors every year.
You're
It's
not
a
gonna-
third party.
Yeah. A lot of long-term contractors.
yeah, so like most of them, so then what'll happen, like what'll happen is we'll get the budget. And then a lot of these numbers, like we were saying, like they are what they are. Like the stormwater appropriations, the enterprise funds and how the enterprise funds, like these numbers are what the numbers are. The PEG Access Enterprise Fund appropriation, like all these things. So like what we'll do is once we've kind of got the budget, we have a sense of the budget, what's going on. It's at one point, we'll figure out where we're at on this thing. Like, we start off like, do we have a big giant problem? What's going on? Like, and again, this situation seems pretty straightforward. Well, let's just say, theoretically, you know, what's the big giant problem we have? Maybe we think that they need to do the override now. You know what I mean? Like, so like, let's say we say, no, we don't like the shenanigans. I'm not saying that there are any, it's just, right? We're saying, we don't like the way they balanced this budget. You know, the way that they balanced this budget, it just kicks too many cans down the road, you know, we want it now. Okay, then you know, we go through our process. But then let's say we don't have a huge problem and we're pretty much in agreement with the general. You know, as far as like what will happen is Nick will come in and we will just, if we're good with the budget, we'll just start cranking through these. So there'll be like, definitely like one night, there'll be one night where we would have Nick come in to kind of hammer out what we would consider to be non-controversial budgets. You know, on the other hand, there would probably be a night where we would have the school committee budget subcommittee come with the school budget. And what will happen with that budget, everybody will get a copy of it.
It's only online, they're only doing digital.
Okay, but that's...
Yeah, they'll all get it.
So we will have access to the budget, okay? And that's big, right? That's a couple hundred pages. Yeah, I mean...
I'm trying to think of the way that we're looking at it now. It's not,
No, I liked last year's.
I mean, but if there's more detail that we need, we just ask for it. I
And
think
that's
we'll
what
have a better sense at the end of
And that's one of the first ones so Amanda, like we'll want to, like when that budget is ready to go, like schools will be like one of the first ones that we want to bring in. Because it's half the budget, 3/4, right? Schools drives everything. Like I've said, it's like the solar system, it's Jupiter. The gravitational field of every other planet is dependent upon the gravitational field of Jupiter. I mean, it just pulls all the money towards itself. Is a way of putting it.
Well, they leave some crumbs for the...
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're all out here wobbling around. So it's such a huge thing. We should get to it first.
Could you say what public, could someone help me? Is it okay? Public safety, where are they located in our town? What department do they belong to?
Public safety, police and fire.
Oh, it's part of police and fire. Thank you. Sorry. Only lived here for
When do you
40
think
years.
that school's budget is going to be finalized? This week, right. So then,
So I think they're meeting tomorrow? Yeah, they're meeting tomorrow morning.
Today.
Yeah, and then they're meeting
Yeah.
tomorrow
Meeting
morning.
tomorrow, then
Right.
school
And then we're
committee is
meeting.
tomorrow.
And then we're meeting Friday,
right.
so.
So I
So
always,
I would envision, by, like, that whatever we're discussing, the final version that we're discussing will be known
Yeah.
this week.
yeah, so right. So I think we're good on time. Like, sort of where I'm always at with regards to Warrant Committee, I'm always like on the verge of panic. I'm always like convinced that like the end is near and we have no time.
Nothing we can do about it. It's
So
state
like,
mandate.
I think right now we're in a good place,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Feels that way.
It feels that way.
Feels
Okay,
that way.
we all agree? We're
Yes.
not in denial?
No.
All right.
What's this
And it's
conversation?
funny, I picked this up from the New York Times.
Okay,
Is that the amount?
Jay won't commit to us being in a good
I'll
place.
never say that.
okay, all right. That's okay.
No man is happy until he is dead.
Yeah, right.
God, you're dark.
Yeah, just, God bless.
Recycle people don't get...
You gotta be planted on the other side of the cemetery because I can't spend eternity. Jay, I'm trying to sleep. All right, anyway. Okay, we're good?
We lost some people.
I think we should. I think we should plan on next week. I think, I've asked community preservation, right? Because their numbers are what their numbers are. Community Preservation Act, you know, they've got their own budget. They do their own thing. They're ready to go. So I figured I've reached out to them, have not heard back. But as at least right now, we have one agenda item that's ready to go for next week. If there's other stuff that's ready, but we might not really yet because, right? But we might as well have them come in and then,
Will they all, so if things are getting finalized this week, would Nick be able to come in and present on Monday? Start presenting?
I think community preservation, see, they have like, what it is they get their money from, where does it come from? From
Taxpayers.
Taxpayers, the 1%.
Right. So they have their money, they have their budget. And then go through lists of proposals for, they go for a list through, and they make their recommendations for how they want the money to be spent.
And we're just,
You know, so, and then who do we have that's on that committee?
Like a warrant committee? rep?
Yeah.
We don't have anybody.
If we have anybody.
Okay, so we don't have anybody. All right, and then,
isn't there, but aren't they just presenting the projects that they're approving?
yeah. But,
It doesn't feel like a
but it's, the way it works is that it has to be approved. Can you guys do that when we're done? Thank you. I know, but
distraction to everyone else.
I've been to so many heavy metal concerts my whole life, it just turns into, the, oh man, it still needs to be approved by town meeting.
Right.
So because it needs to be approved by town meeting, it needs a recommendation from the warrant committee. But it's their domain.
Right.
So like when I say like, are we really gonna have like a big giant problem with pickleball? You better not have a problem with pickleball. You know what I mean?
It's loud, I hear.
You know, you're gonna get it.
Permeable surfaces.
Oh. Right?
Who's paying that stormwater bill?
Yeah.
All right.
So just for where things stand, I mean, I listened to on the call this morning, I think there were still some open items in Nick's budget. I mean, I don't know where that's going to end up or when it's going to shake out, but like I don't think things are completely done with Nick's budget as of today. I think they're very close.
Yeah, I mean, better be.
I'm just saying, when you said, will the school budget be finalized tomorrow? I don't know if it will be.
Not tomorrow.
Okay.
I've heard, yes.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Well, you know, the good news is, like, the good news is like, if there's uncertainty, and we've dealt with lots of it, like, we're waiting for a finalized budget, but we've got a plan in place. We're going to talk to our department heads, and then we'll have a process to review it. We'll be able to do it, I think, in short order. It's not like we're sitting here waiting for them to like reopen land swap for the fourth time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or we're sitting on top of.
It's more like Nick says, oh, we've got an extra $100,000 in new growth that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Or the other way, or we need to come up with 100,000. I mean, in a budget this size, I mean, of all the problems that we've worked through in the past, like the unexpected problems that we're expecting seem to be the type that we'll be able to handle without crisis. And I think we'll just be able to plow through it. You know, and then, you know, if we've got more that we can do next Monday, we'll do it. But if that's just a one thing and we're quick, and then I've already got the following week, local historic districts coming in. So Larry Lawler, they're finalizing the language on local historic districts. So we're definitely, so we'll
That's
go.
the 11th?
Yeah, right, so we'll go Monday. And then what we'll do is I would just plan on every Monday at this point until we're done. And then what we'll do is based upon need, we'll start doing Monday and Wednesday. And then if there's a crush at the end, in the last week of the crush at the end, we'll go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, so what we'll try to do is Mondays, and then when we really start to roll, we'll go Monday and Wednesday, and then, you know, so the crunch time, and I still don't have like the schedule for when they need the warrant, but let's just say like, you know, it's like April 1st, like that first weekend in April, we'll say. So like super crunch time would be last week of March, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Frankly, I think that's can be avoided. Just from what I can see, like if the budget if there's finality, and a clear finality with it, it could go pretty quickly. And then we go into town meeting.
You think the warrant's going to be, need to be completed by the Friday, Saturday, first week of April?
Let's just say that's what I would expect the calendar to be.
When is town meeting again?
May
6th.
May 6th?
May 6th.
Right, and so then, I'm glad you brought that up. And then for purposes of the warrant, if you got, one of these sections, one of these departments, then you would be asked to write the comment. But they're very on most of them, it's very boilerplate. And so that's another one of the reasons why what's important about the conversation with the department heads. Because a lot of the things that they say that are relevant to like right now can go into the comment. Like one of the things that I would often ask like Chase Berkeley is can you put a dollar amount on the deferred maintenance on our roads?
I get it.
And we put that in the comment, you know what I mean? Like, what are things that are coming? Like sometimes like they might say you're talking to somebody and they're like, I'm not saying it now, but like in a couple years, we're gonna need a new this, and just I put that kind of stuff in the comment. Just like heads up town, like they're saying that they're good right now, but the big thing that they use, they're gonna need a new one. And because sometimes stuff like that goes into the capital budget, sometimes it doesn't or whatever. So, like I try to use my comment to advocate on behalf of that department.
I mean, since we're not funding they're called needs, the extra needs this year, if relevant, we can say, here's what this department asked for, and we didn't give it to them.
And they'll be very happy to tell you the things that they asked for that they didn't get.
Well, I think the minutia is interesting that they tell you about. Like, well, why this? They explain it. And I think it helps generally, most times.
Yeah? Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Motion to adjourn?
Megan's made a motion. Second. Is there any objection?
No.
It carries.
Okay.
Bye, Zoom people.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Jake.
Aye.